Karoline walked into the courtroom determined to clear her name. Instead, she uncovered a conflict of interest so massive that the judge had to be removed. Mid-hearing, Judge Ronald Pierce leaned back in his chair, his posture making one thing clear. His mind was already made up. The courtroom in Manchester, New Hampshire was anything but grand. Rows of worn wooden benches, flickering fluorescent lights, and a dusty flag pinned to the back wall gave it a tired, lifeless feel. But to Judge Pierce, it was a stage. The gavel in his hand wasn't just a tool, it was a prop. And today, he was ready to put on a show. Then Karoline Leavitt walked in, just before 10 a.m., calm, sharp, and maybe even a little too quiet for his taste. She carried a slim folder and wore a navy suit that made her look more like an analyst than a plaintiff. But there was something about the way she moved, like she had already lived through worse and wasn't here to impress anyone. Judge Pierce glanced down at her name on the docket, squinting slightly. "Ah, yes, Miss Leavitt, the woman with a reputation problem," he said, loud enough for the entire courtroom to hear. The people in the pews, mostly college students observing the trial, shifted uncomfortably. Karoline didn't flinch. "Statement, Your Honor," she replied evenly, without so much as a blink. "Oh, of course," Judge Pierce said, cracking a smug smile. "Let's hear what you have to say about how someone allegedly ruined your precious little career." Her attorney, Malcolm Roos, a reserved man from Lowell, stood up. "Your Honor, we'd appreciate a respectful tone. This is a defamation hearing." Pierce didn't even bother looking at him. "Save it, counselor. I'll run my courtroom the way I see fit." And just like that, the tone was set. One part intimidation, one part performance. Karoline took the stand. The clerk swore her in. She adjusted the mic. Rios passed her a single page to begin her statement. But she didn't read from it. She looked. Straight ahead, past the judge, past the lawyers, past the rows of watching eyes. Studying her, he waited. Through enough. "I came here to tell the truth, because if I don't, I'm no better than the people who lied in the first place." Pierce gave a lazy smirk. "Admirable. But let's not turn this into a movie script." The court reporter typed steadily, barely lifting her eyes from the machine. Karoline continued, her voice unwavering. "Last year, after I left my role with the communications firm and challenged a former colleague, someone with ties to the defendant, rumors started. Claims that I had falsified press statements, manipulated campaign data. Within a week, I lost 2 contracts. My landlord started questioning my lease. I stopped getting invited to local briefings. No one wanted their name attached to mine." Pierce leaned back in his chair, twirling a pen in his fingers. Pierce twirled the pen between his fingers. "And you're saying all this stemmed from a single comment made by the defendant at a fundraiser?" "Yes," Karoline answered without pause. "Because it wasn't just a comment. It was a calculated statement, and it was false." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Interesting." Malcolm Ruiz rose again. "We'll provide context, Your Honor, along with witness statements and a timeline. But if we may," Pierce waved him off. "You'll get your chance, counselor." A pause. Tension clung to the air. Karoline stayed silent, waiting for the judge to let her finish. But he didn't. Instead, Pierce scribbled something on a yellow legal pad, chuckled quietly, and muttered, "This should be fun." That's when Karoline looked at him. Not just looked, but saw him. The arrogance, the power he thought he had, and something else too. A tiny trace of fear, like he knew this wasn't going to be the easy win he expected, before he could cut her. Off again, Karoline's attorney reached into his briefcase and placed a sealed folder on the bench, one the judge didn't see coming. It sat untouched, its tab marked only with the tab read only KL 42. Judge Pierce glanced at it briefly, then back at Karoline, like it was some kind of bluff. "Go ahead," he said, leaning forward. "Finish your story." Karoline didn't hesitate. She knew what she came for. She took a breath and started speaking, not with dramatics, but with the quiet precision of someone who had practiced every word alone in her kitchen at 2 a.m. The fundraiser. Wasn't a coincidence, she said. Neither was the timing of what was said about me. The man who made those comments, Jeremy Bellamy, isn't just a friend of the defendant. He was in line for a major contract with her company. The smear helped. Lock in that deal. My name was just collateral. Judge Pierce sighed, glancing at the clock. So your claim is that a passing comment at a social event triggered a domino effect that ruined your reputation, Judge Pierce said. And you believe this court should hold the defendant financially responsible? No, Karoline replied, her voice steady. I believe this court should hear the full story before deciding what's worth accountability. The gallery had gone silent. Even the students had stopped scribbling. In their notebooks, Rios handed her another document. Please explain this email, he said. Karoline took it. This was sent 2 days before the fundraiser, she said. It's from Bellamy to the defendant. It states, she cleared her throat and read aloud. Once we move Karoline out of the picture, the board will be a lot more flexible. Pierce stopped flipping his pen. Obtained this legally? Pierce asked. Rios nodded. Through discovery, Your Honor. A pause. The judge's jaw tensed, but Karoline wasn't done. What I didn't realize, she said, holding up the paper, was that this wasn't just a personal attack. It was business. I was in the way, and someone made sure to push me out. Judge Pierce rubbed his forehead. Miss Leavitt, even if what you're saying holds merit, this court isn't designed to referee gossip. Karoline held his stare. It's not gossip when there's a paper trail. For the first time, a flicker of discomfort crossed the judge's smug exterior. Then, a soft knock at the courtroom door, a clerk entered quietly and handed him a note. The clerk handed the note to Pierce and exited. He opened it, read it, folded it once, and set it aside. Continue, he said, his voice flatter than before. Karoline pointed to the sealed folder still sitting on the bench. That folder contains financial disclosures submitted by Judge Pierce during the previous fiscal year, she said. The room didn't breathe. Rios cleared his throat. Your Honor, we are submitting this as a formal exhibit. The contents pertain directly to the court's ability to remain impartial in this case. Judge Pierce's expression shifted, slightly, subtly, but enough. I'm sorry, he said, his tone sharper now. What exactly are you insinuating? Pierce asked, eyes narrowing. Karoline didn't raise her voice. We're not insinuating anything, Your Honor. We're submitting evidence, she gestured, toward the folder. The documents link you to a financial interest in the defendant's firm, through a third-party equity group registered in Massachusetts. You signed the disclosure yourself, 6 months ago. Now, the silence wasn't just tension. It was disbelief. Rios remained calm. Your Honor, I'd like to request a recess so the court can consider whether a recusal is appropriate. Pierce stood up. He didn't pound the gavel. He didn't shout. He just stared, first at Karoline, then at the folder. You've made your point, he said. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out through the side door. The room remained frozen as the door shut behind him with a hollow thud. No one had any doubt. This wasn't over. It was just getting started. Silence. Heavier than anything Karoline had said, a few whispers. Heads turning toward her. She stayed seated, eyes forward. She didn't move like someone who had just made a bold accusation. She moved like someone who had finally put down a weight she'd carried for too long. Malcolm Ruiz leaned toward her and whispered, "That was the moment. You okay?" She gave the slightest nod. "I just want the truth to stick this time." 10 minutes passed. Then the side door opened again, but not with Pierce. A different face. Judge Andrea Teller, one of the county's senior alternates, walked in, reading from a file as she made her way to the bench. No robe, just a gray blazer and a look that said she didn't like surprises. She sat down and addressed the room. Due to an administrative concern involving the presiding judge, I've been assigned to review the matter and determine whether further steps are necessary. All current proceedings are paused until I've reviewed the record and verified the facts presented. Rios stood. Thank you, Your Honor. We're prepared to assist in any way necessary. Teller didn't nod, didn't smile. I'm not here for pleasantries, she said. I'm here to make sure nothing inappropriate has occurred under this court's authority. She flipped open the sealed folder. Her expression didn't change, but her pace slowed with each page she read. Karoline sat still, hands clasped in her lap. Her voice had carried her through the fire, but now it was out of her hands. The judge read in silence for nearly 5 minutes. Then she looked up. Miss Leavitt, I want to confirm. You obtained these records through public financial disclosures? Yes, Your Honor, Karoline answered. They're archived through the New Hampshire Office of Judicial Conduct. I also cross-referenced them with public shareholder records from Massachusetts. Teller turned to the court clerk. Record that statement. Then she addressed the room. I will be calling a recess while I contact the state's Commission on Judicial Conduct for immediate guidance. If what's in this folder is accurate, there is a non-trivial conflict of interest in this case. You could feel the air shift, not outrage, just quiet acknowledgement that something real was happening, something most people never see in courtrooms like this. A judge being scrutinized, not for bias, but for potentially sitting on a case where he had a personal financial stake. As people filed out for recess, a man in a denim jacket and horn-rimmed glasses approached Karoline. He didn't look like he belonged in a courtroom. Maybe a college professor, maybe a journalist. You're Leavitt? He asked softly. Yes. I've been covering this court for a few years, he said. Never seen someone put Pierce on his heels like that. Karoline didn't smile. It's not about getting under his skin, she said. It's about making sure people like him stop thinking they can play with other people's lives. The man nodded, scribbled something in a small notepad, and walked off.